you.
You're welcome.
So they only open like later in.
Wednesday, Saturday, 5 p.m.
You got your own mic tonight.
Online?
Meeting called to order. Today is Tuesday, February 27th. It is now 6:03 PM. Town Council meeting as a sewer commission at 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island. Jay, will you lead us in prayer? Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in a meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a community, and nurture the bonds. Community. Amen. Jay, will you say the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So who's in charge of roll call?
Roll call. Council President Goslin.
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson.
Here.
Councilman Messier.
Here.
Councilman Licciardi.
Here.
Councilman Dennison.
Here.
Participating communities, Town of Coventry, Town of Situate, City of Cranston, City of Warwick, Town of West Greenwich. Quorum is declared. Council President, first item on the agenda is approval of Resolution SC 2024-01, minutes of the November 21, 2023 Sewer Commission meeting.
Move approval.
Second. Moving second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's report.
Good evening, Council. So this is the superintendent report for January 2024. Our average daily flow was up at 10.7 million gallons per day. Our peak flow was 23.2 million gallons during the main flooding of the facility and of the town and region. Our minimum was before everything happened, which was 3.7 million gallons per day. For CBOD removal, we're at 97%, which was 2 milligrams per liter. TSS was 97% at 2.9 milligrams per liter. Phosphorus was 0.7, so all of those limits were below our DEM permits. Sludge removal was nice. We had 558 tons go to Synagro. We did not have to send anything to the landfill, so we sent a total of 558 out. Sewer backups in the public lines, there were 5. Aldridge Street, Providence Street, Pulaski Street, Grist Street, and Valley View Drive. All of these were around the time of the excessive rain and flooding around the town. So that was all, not much we can do about that, unfortunately, at this time. For the private lines, there were 2 backups, one on Bratt Lane and one on Knight Street. For order complaints in January, there was 0. For facility violations, there was also 0. And now Bradford Soap line repair. So during the flooding events, there was an issue at Bradford Soap. We have an easement on their property, so we have multiple pipes going through them. It's called a reverse inverted siphon. So basically it has one big pipe, goes to 2 pipes, goes back to 1 pipe after it gets basically through most of Bradford. What we found is that there was wastewater leaking out of it in the pipes when we started excavating the ground, so we had to figure out what to do. So currently we're having a team out there that was basically cleaning the line first and then cameraing the line. When cameraing the line, which each of the 2 pipes is about 650 feet, the first pipe we realized a majority of it was damaged. So today, what actually happened was they lined it. So basically, a little wastewater collection system knowledge for you guys. Basically, they put a balloon in there, they expand it, put some steam in there, and it coats the entire line. And then after a couple hours, they pull the inside of the line out, which basically it's a hardener and protects the line for, I don't know what it is, another estimate, 40, 50 years of line. So that's basically what's happening with the first one. Once this is complete, what's going to happen is that the second line that's on the Bradford Soap easement that we have, we're going to clean it, inspect it, and then see, okay, does this one also need to be repaired, or is this one in better shape and it's okay to use still? So that's currently where we're at. I know some residents on Duke Street are concerned about the generator that's there. That will be there for at least another couple weeks, or the pump that's there. So unfortunately, we're trying our best to get this done, but optimistically, I'm hoping by the middle of March that most of this will be complete, but that's just, that's my hope. So, I'll open up to any questions at this time from the council.
Any questions for Jeff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is industrial pretreatment program report.
Very all new furniture.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing?
Oh,
Um,
you haven't been here that long? The new
well,
podium
the
too?
new podium was just dedicated the last time I was here,
All
so
right.
it wasn't in place. Brett's furniture, everything's great. Nice.
Bert's furniture.
I thanked him for it. It was nice and comfortable. So anyways, this is the industrial pretreatment for the month of January. Our quarterly sampling for our industrial, significant industrial users, they submitted their reports and all were in compliance. And that's Amtrol, Ammunex, Bradford Soap Works, Warwick Ice Cream, and Famera. And we have another group of significant users that give us annual reports. And they're like Cal Chemical and New England Laboratories and Ethia Labs. And all these reports were in compliance with the regulations and their discharge permit. During the month of January, the treatment plant had a report of a problem at the industrial lane area where a potential sewer was thought to be a sewer overflow. At the time, the staff, my staff and the treatment plant staff went to the site and we found that there was no evidence of any overflow of wastewater. But we did check the infrastructure and found there was some debris in the lines. And so we sent the owner a letter and requesting that they clean the line, and he has until mid-March to accomplish that. With regards to the O&M manuals, the Queesit Corner updated their O&M manual as a result of their new management company that runs the facility. Food services, a new permit. The Queesit sub was inspected and all was found to be in compliance. A new permit was issued for California Taco. Plans were reviewed for the veterinarian emergency group. That's the former TGI Fridays. This is Unit B, and they are continuing working on that. Flush Car Wash did receive their approval. This is in the center of New England in West Greenwich. Boston Scientific submitted revised plans for their facility in Coventry. The plans were in compliance and a letter was issued. An application was received from 13 Plants, Pleasant Street, that's the former One Stop Auto. The application was not complete and a letter was issued to them. Plans were and specification and applications rather were received from Floor Decor on Quaker Lane in Warwick. Again, deficiency letter was sent out. Right now, under construction, 87 Center of New England began construction along with Arctic Mills, the Kent County Water Authority on Technology Way, and the Shake Shack, which is Unit A on that TGI Fridays complex. And that's all I have for pretreatment.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Next on the agenda is financial report. Year-to-date operating and debt expenses for fiscal year 2024 through January 31 totaled $6,240,952, which is 63% of the annual budget. Overtime for the month of January was $27,017, which is 19% of the annual budget. Overtime was a little higher in January due to shift coverage for the holidays and due to multiple weather events that occurred requiring additional coverage at the facility. FY 2024 year-to-date overtime is $104,457, which is 73% of the annual budget. Year-to-date savings for salaries is $32,682, which is helping to offset the facility's overtime expenses. Personnel-related expenses such as salaries, overtime, higher classification pay, etc., for the first 7 months of the fiscal year should be 58.33% of the approved budget. And through the end of January, the facility has expended 58% of the budget. Council, I threw that number in there just to show, even though we are running a little high on overtime, overall in the personnel group, we are still within budget through the end of January. Sludge removal costs through the end of January totaled $457,991, which is 61% of the annual budget. Our current year sewer usage and industrial collections through the end of January totaled $5,786,453, which is 72% of the total billed. Our prior year sewer usage collections through the end of January totaled $499,695, of which $110,067 is penalty interest. Our fiscal year 2024 sewer assessment collections through the end of January totaled $269,507, which is 106% of the total bill. Our collections continue to remain high due to customers paying down the balance of their sewer assessment. In January, we also mailed intermunicipal bond invoices to our regional partners for our next bond payment that is due in March. And our cash and investments through the end of January totaled $3,400,985. That is my financial report, Council President.
Any questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding billing methodology.
Yes, this has been actually postponed a couple of times because of meetings. So we're finally here to discuss it. I know it was brought up in November.
Yes.
So here we are in February. So Tony, I know you said you had an update. If you want to just abreast everybody of the history and, you can let us,
Absolutely, Council President. So as you mentioned, Council President, in November, this was brought up and you asked us to dive into this and look at when this all came about. Our current billing method is charged on per equivalent dwelling unit or EDU for debt service, and we also have an annual sewer usage fee that's calculated on a minimum of 4,000 cubic feet per EDU or per equivalent dwelling unit, excuse me. To give the council and the public a little more history on that, the EDU billing method is codified in West Warwick Code of Ordinances, Section 15-18, subsection 6, annual sewage system user charges, which states, quote, "In the event two or more lots, parcels of real estate, residences, dwelling units, or buildings discharging sanitary sewage water or other liquids into the sanitary sewage system of the town are users of the town are users of water, and the quantity of water is measured by a single water meter, then in each case, for billing purposes, the minimum charge for the sewer rates and charges shall be multiplied by the number of lots, parcels, or real estate, residences, dwelling units, or buildings served through the single water meter." In my research, I wasn't able to locate the exact date of when that was passed, but we were able to determine that it's been in effect for at least the past 20 years. Debt service charges, which is the portion of the bill that provides revenue to pay our annual bond payments, has been in effect for at least this 20-year period. The establishment of the 4,000 cubic foot per EDU minimum was passed by the town council on June 7, 2016, and was effective for the fiscal year 2017 budget, which commenced on July 1 of that year. So currently, the current fiscal year debt service fee is $120 per EDU. If the EDU billing method was abolished and switched to a per account billing basis, the annual debt service charge for this current fiscal year would have been $237 per account as opposed to $120 per EDU. A single family property, duplex, and larger residential apartment complex such as Royal Mills would have all paid the same flat $237 debt service fee, with multi-residential properties having a larger impact on the sewage system than a single-family residence. Regarding the sewage usage rate, currently it is calculated by billing on 80% of water consumption as provided by the Kent County Water Authority, with each bill calculated on a minimum of 4,000 cubic feet per EDU. If we were to eliminate the minimum usage / EDU requirement and bill based upon 80% of actual usage, the current fiscal year usage rate of $4.65 per 100 cubic feet of consumption would have needed to be $7.70 per 100 cubic feet of consumption to fund the budget. That is a 66% increase over the current rate, with 2/3 of our customers experience an increase in their yearly bill, and 1/3 of our customers would see a decrease. To give some averages, I included in the memo, council, that the average single-family property that uses 6,000 cubic feet of water would see an increase in their annual bill from $399 to $699, which is an increase in the bill of 75%. Well users who by ordinance have their bill calculated on 10,000 cubic feet of water per year would see their bill increase from $585 to $1,007. That's an increase of 72%. A single-family resident who uses 3,000, I want to give a different example. A single-family resident who uses 3,000 cubic feet of water, but is currently being billed on the 4,000 cubic foot minimum, would pay $468 per year, as opposed to the $306 they currently pay, which is an increase of 53%. So if we did away with the EDU billing method and did away with the 4,000 cubic foot minimum to fund this year's budget, 2/3 of our ratepayers would see an increase of anywhere from 53% to 75% of their bill. And I will gladly answer any questions that the council has.
If you remember, Tony sent this to us back in the beginning of January to take a look at, and we had meetings canceled. The January meeting was canceled, so, but he did put a lot of work into it. I think it certainly justifies the methodology we're using at this point in time, and a switch would have a serious impact on many
Right.
ratepayers. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Is anybody here from the audience for this matter? Again, I know this methodology of dwelling, Tony, I know hasn't been in place 20 years. It's because David Kenahan and myself, when did you get elected?
Well, you had it. you did have it.
16? So I think it was 2015.
There was two different things.
The 4,000 cubic foot minimum was established in June of 16 for the FY17 budget. The debt service per EDU has been in effect for at least the
Yes.
past 20 years. Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Again, I know it was voted in 3-2. As Councilwoman Williamson said, it's very hard to change that at this point because due to debt service and all that, and the way the budget has run in the sewer department, you would have to make up that money somewhere else. And I understand because when this first went into play, I know I had a lot of individuals, I say a lot, little about 10, that called me on this matter, and they're mostly senior citizens or single people who lived in duplex, owner occupied or whatever it may be, and they were concerned about the amount of water they don't use, and the bill now doubled. And then we also got letters from Clyde Towers, Robert Street, Royal Mills, because they went by water usage, then by dwelling unit. So their bills went up drastically. I know they had to have meetings and discuss that because ultimately, financially, it wasn't in their budgets per se. So I don't know what we can do to change it, but if anybody has any ideas, I know there's one resident in my ward that brought this here before us, and he's reached out to Congress, senators, state reps, myself. I think everybody puts it back on me to answer it. I've answered it just like Tony has answered it again here tonight over the past 2 years. But we're stuck in a rock and a hard place at this point.
Council President, if I just may add one more piece just for the discussion. If the billing method was changed to what was discussed in the memo in the commission, which is respectfully within your right to not increase the $4.65 rate, that would have resulted in the wastewater facility having to find $2 million worth of cuts in the budget. So about 20% of the budget, that would not be a realistic cut for us to make. So I want to also give that end of it as well.
Any questions on that? Thank you. Thank you for the update, Tom,
You're welcome, Councilor.
and the
You're welcome,
history
Councilor.
lesson.
Right.
Thank you. Next item is infrastructure improvements and funding opportunity. Mr. Jeremy.
Good evening again. Okay, if you may recall, back during the last budget year, the staff came up with projected capital improvements as we talked about the need for capital improvements moving forward. It came up with projects about $7 million to be implemented over a 5 to 6 year period of time. Recently, the management group has had some discussions with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the possibility of if the town needed funding for upcoming projects. So what we looked at as the management committee is to look at, do we want to look at consolidating some of these major projects, putting a bond together and paying that bond over 20 years, as opposed to funding it? For example, one of the projects is $2.5 million. So instead of funding that over a 1 or 2 year period, we can span it over a 20-year period and pay the bond. The interesting thing about that is, as we increase a bond payment, put that on the books, we're retiring some of the bond payments. So the net impact to the public, to the users, is zero. So now's the time, if you had, and the projects we're looking at are significant projects, is the ultraviolet disinfection, because as you remember, the manufacturer no longer supports this. So we're on eBay buying spare parts, and over a period of time, those spare parts will be gone, and we need to upgrade it, and we need to do that. The other one is the East Natick I put back in some of the projects that we talked about to do over a 6 year period. And one was the East Natick Interceptor. If you recall, 2 years ago on Water Street, we had a significant break in that East Natick Interceptor. It cost almost $700,000, and I think we only replaced 400 to 500 feet of sewer line. So, and we did TV it, and we found structurally that the line still has some structural integrity to it. So now would be the opportunity to line that without, and it would minimize the road any roadway work. Is there?
Sorry.
Well, I know I'm boring. And we want to do this before, with the structural integrity of that pipe disappears, and we have to replace it. I mean, we keep encountering these costs. The Bradford Soap project, that's going to be expensive. We don't have the numbers yet, but you're talking close to $1 million. And we're only replacing 600 feet.
So where's that money coming from?
It's a good question. It's going to come from your reserve.
Okay.
It has to come from your reserve, unless there's, I know we're going to go after FEMA money for it as a potential. But I would assume it's got to come out of your reserve, and that depletes that reserve considerably. So the other two projects, just let me finish, is the SCADA. The SCADA system is outdated, as most computers are. This was put in 15 years ago. And as they upgrade these technologies, I can't replace, or the plant can't replace these, what they call PLCs, because they're no longer serviced. So instead of doing it again over a 5 year period, we invest the money now, put it out to bids, get a completely new system. And finally, the Maisie Quinn pump station. That's the pump station that literally is it saved about $250,000 by using the pump station to bypass the flow to the Bradford Soap area. If that wasn't functioning, that bypass would have had to run along Providence Street for over 2,000 feet, put it in the roadway, an 18-inch pipe in the roadway. So that is very critical that we get this, up to date. That was done, I want to say 25 years ago, that station was put in. Station was put in because that's almost like a relief sewer. If you look at, and the Narragansett Bay Commission has these CSOs. Well, all the flow comes from the upper part of the town. It flows down. And what was happening was, from that point on Duke Street moving forward, that line would always overflow because it would get the high flow conditions, it would overflow. Now that pump station has a weir. We take the excess flow that can't be handled in the pipe and it goes to the pump station. Then that pump station bypasses the system and gets to the treatment plant further down, eliminating CSOs. So the long and the short, those projects, and I added contingencies because as things go on, it'll increase, but it's about $6.5 million. So if we look at the SRF program or the infrastructure bank, what they're saying, and I spoke with the finance director, Kristen had told me to use 4% as interest rates. If we use 4%, that payment is $478,000. Your West Warwick share of that is $350,000 round numbers. So again, that equates to $23 per EDU. But since we're retiring some of the infrastructure bonds, there'll be no increase. We're just moving that payment over to pay this bond off without impacting the public. That's a critical aspect of that. So if the commission decides to do that, we will then contact the infrastructure bank, let them know when we plan to borrow the money and get all the particulars. I would then recommend a letter going off from the town council and the town manager to all the regional partners, identifying the intent to go after this bond money and their share of the bond cost. And then after that, I would recommend a resolution amending the intermunicipal agreement to cover just a commitment. It's just kind of a formality when I'm not around anymore, it'll be there. It's something that will be there in perpetuity over a 20-year period of time that it's memorialized. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I have one. I know we didn't see Bradford Soap happening, but do you see any more projects down the line within the next year or two that have not been included for this bond?
The only other one is the cleaning and lining of what we call the Maisie Quinn Interceptor. Now, that project has been, Senator Sheldon White, was it?
Read in Magazine, or we did.
Magazina.
Yeah.
Or that was put in as an application, so that's being shortlisted through that program to clean it. Some of these interceptors are so old, without inspecting them, it just creates we don't know. But that's the only other project, and that's cleaning. So that was like $1.5 million, I think, dollars on that, so.
Where are we with receiving any money for that?
That one we expect final answers from them within 2 months. And we've sort of mentally put aside ARPA funds as our share, should that be awarded to us, so we could act on it right away.
Okay.
Now, we're not going to get the close on the loan immediately. If something falls through on that and you want to include it, obviously that can be done, because we're not closing on the loan. We're just going to say, this is what we want. Because the way it works is you have 2 years to spend this money. So you don't want to spend it. You'll upfront the design cost, but be reimbursed for it once the loan closes. You don't want to waste, I don't want to say waste, but spend the time through design and bidding when you don't really need the bulk of the money. You then close on the loan and then you move forward. And you've got some, obviously, some bond anticipation notes. We used to call them bands years ago. I don't know what they call them now, but.
Bands and bands.
Bands and bands.
Yeah.
So, that could be added in because the system is getting old. I mean, in 2010, when the floods of 2010, it was a blessing. A lot of that upgrades at the treatment plant occurred. Pumps, motors, generators, that all occurred. Those are now 13 years old. But the infrastructure in the field, I mean, Bradford Soap was put in the mid and early seventies. That was put in, and that line is what they call a siphon going underneath the river. And then it comes up and it goes through Bradford Soap. Well, Bradford Soap built around it. So we have no option but to line it. Because it goes under, if you're familiar with Bradford Soap and the bridge that goes between it, well, it's right underneath there. And it's very difficult to, excavate there, so. We spent a lot of time cleaning, it was very filthy. There's a lot of sediment in that line. So,
So Jim, one thing you said was, majority of these projects, if not all, were in West Warwick, and you said that you'd have to, 300-something thousand of ours would be our responsibility.
Right.
And you'd have to get approval from the other cities and
no,
towns.
you're the partner. You have the financial obligation to make these improvements, and they're obligated under the intermunicipal agreement to pay those costs. But you want them to budget ahead of time, because you want to give them an option to stop planning for it. Because, like, for example, on the Warwick
Right.
Water Street project, what was Coventry's share? It's like 100 and,
I
2,100.
want to say it was in the ballpark 120 to 130 share.
yeah, and that was in a 1-year period. Now, their share of this whole project, if it was 6.5, be $100,000 a year. And some of their bond payments are going to go away too. As your bond payments go away, so do theirs. So it's not an increase in their bond payments to West Warwick. It's going to, one is going to retire, one is going to pick back up. You're still spending the same amount of money, but you're making progress in upgrading. So,
I think some of the scary thing is, within the last 15 months, we've had Water Street and we've had Bradford Soap, and that's $1.7 million somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right.
So that's two very small areas. It's a big number. So some of this stuff just has to be done. We can't wait at this point in time.
we kid Jeff, he can't go on vacation because it happens every time he's on vacation.
When do you plan on beginning these projects?
If you give us permission, say, go ahead and correspond, we're beginning the design on the UV anyways, because that was in last year's budget to start that design immediately. We will immediately start it, and it would probably, the loans would start materializing, I would say, in 26.
I would say first bond payment would be due early FY '26. Mr. Jeremy is correct.
So,
Will
So
this have any impact on the residents at all?
no. And I say that quickly, but no, because one of the things in lining is you don't have the disruption of traffic. And I want to get that before that occurs. Because remember where this is. This is on Providence Street and right by the school, and it goes all the way to the treatment plant. So if I line it, yes, I'm going to dig some some pits in the ground. We can work around it, but I'm not digging up the entire street. I'm not back, and I'm not paying for it. Because the pavement alone is going to be $2 million, let alone the repairs.
So this is on the agenda for discussion only tonight.
Yes.
The next step would be that we would need a resolution or an ordinance.
Yeah, I'll give you some general wording that
Okay.
is required for the SRF, authorizing the town manager to sign on your behalf these documents. And then we can move forward, and I'll put them on notice that we're going to look for that, make sure they set aside money. And I don't know, last year the community was not classified as a depressed community, but it changes year to year. So if you're classified as a depressed community, your interest rates will also go down. I mean, things are getting more difficult, more expensive.
Any other questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is approval of Resolution SC 2024-02, contract extension for plant chemicals.
Move approval.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Jeff, you want to just give an update on that?
Sure. So we went out for chemicals like we do every year. And 5 out of the 6 companies said that they would hold their price for this year. And the next resolution will be the other one. So
Any questions for Jeff? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Next item is approval of resolution SC consideration of SC 2024-03, contract extension Polymer.
Move approval.
Second.
do each one, Tony, or?
Yeah, Polymer was under a separate bid last year. Atlantic Coast Polymer had already agreed, and the commission approved one contract extension last year at current pricing. They've agreed to do one more year at current pricing from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Next is consideration of resolution SC 2024-04, bid award line.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, so all the chemicals, this one did not hold. They were the only bidder when we went out to bid, and they've been the only bidder for the past couple of years. So they increased their price slightly, and we need to use them, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but they're the only bidder out there.
Yeah, they're the only person, the only
I,
company.
I
that
think
came.
I was talking with the director of administration as well, that maybe next year we just go out for a 3-year bid if they're the only people that ever bid on this, so that we don't have to keep doing this every year.
If I may, this bid for Madigan Lime, if approved, is for a 2-year bid. It's a multi-year bid due to the fact that they're, as the superintendent said, only one around, so we wanted to lock in for 2 years.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Public comment.
Any public comment on sewer? Hearing none?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, it's just Al. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 2-minute recess.
The letter from county water. Is that something? Yeah.
So Jeff sent it to me. I called him today and asked if it was okay. I assumed he sent it to everyone. He said, no, he sent it to you and to me. I asked him if it was okay to give it to the rest of them, so that's what I did.
Want me to read that letter?
I think you need to read the whole thing. I mean, it's very thorough. Yeah, I mean,
I spoke with Dave Simmons earlier.
Okay.
I saw him laugh. I'm like, oh, that's so funny when I saw Al.
Completely canceled.
yeah.
He was out.
Is that the 23 and the
The
13?
23 and the
The
12.
the letter's very thorough, and Jeff has
23 and
been
the 12, it's all
extraordinarily,
expressed.
hey, it's our issue. We had issues with our contractors. We know that. We're gonna make sure that going forward, and they'll meet with anybody they want to before the season kicks off. So, yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Appreciate it.
This is getting completely canceled. These are the two that getting completely canceled, right? So 23.
Thank you, Tony.
Go back to the Express from Center Arctic to downtown. And then this is Coventry. Yeah, they did right through pre-construction.
We're gonna do it
New
now.
year. Those two completely canceled. What is only getting canceled on the weekend, well, this is the week, so this is the Woodland Manor and Coventry job lot, right on through Washington City bottom. Arctic Center, Phoenix Hotel, Colgate Providence, Providence Wakefield, the mall, PCRI. So this is what's maintained Monday through Friday. So all of these lines are still running Monday through Friday. They're canceling this one just for the weekend. Okay?
Richter update?
So this isn't as bad as it seems. But
Well,
there's still gonna be a major impact.
cancellation one, that's troublesome.
That's the audit.
Yeah, well, it goes up to center of New England. That's the one
What do we need?
We need the center of New England. Well, is the one for, Market Basket still in, because it comes through audit, goes up that way and goes back around to Market Basket too. I know Market Basket pays for that run though, so I don't know.
I know what we're talking about, because it's on the map. But it's not listed. Over there,
Market Basket paid for their route, so I'm sure that they're gonna cut it if somebody's running it, right? Or they put something towards that route. Yeah. Which one that is?
Yeah, the whole thing is confusing. Very confusing.
Yeah, because the routes go every which direction, but they say they're just cutting those areas out of that route.
They're talking about going from like, stop, like, take the 13 to the 6, to the 6, to the 20, whatever it is.
These are the changes that they're listed.
The wall, the town, that one's only pretty recent, they didn't.
Guys, I just want to let you know the mic's all hot.
Yeah, that, it's shrinking down to that. They're cutting stops, because that one goes down to Quonset. All the way down to Quonset, and they're gonna stop it at.
These are the eliminations, just read right on that.
Yeah, I don't, this is, yeah. I don't plan on meeting every, but it's going to be just people pray for it.
Yeah. The awareness, you know, those are the ones that are being closed, shut down, and.
Buy a bus, buy a bus, we have a drive. Keep her on.
I'm gonna take, yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna take the senior bus and do it on weekends.
What?
I'm gonna take the senior bus and do it on weekends. Put a tip jar on the front, I don't know. I can pass that. I know I can pass that, anyway.
Randomly. Thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
30 years ago.
One for everybody here.
30 or 3?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's, yeah.
I think I've got.
Paula, are you doing this meeting?
Oh, wait, I think these are all. I think this is one packet.
Keep the packet here. I'm not gonna-
Everything's about Market Basket with this guy.
No,
They fund it with
it's the
the,
two runs. Think about it. How many people go to,
Yes, you.
yeah, it's
how many people go to
These
Walmart?
it absolutely
What should buy us new chairs?
not good for our.
Because the Centerville run does market. And
All right, so what do you,
Yeah.
what's
you have all your stuff?
expected in West Warwick, fully.
All right,
No, you do.
No, I got the.
we share a mic.
It's all
No,
one
I don't
packet.
want it, you could keep it.
Like there's
I
different.
keep talking.
Oh,
That's
no.
the 23, that's the 13.
I read them all, and I didn't go to the meeting, but,
I wasn't able to get to the
I mean,
meeting.
there was.
It was a big turnout.
Yeah,
At least the one I went to, which was in the earlier one. You went to the later one, right?
I mean, they talk about, there's only a few riders, but based on what I'm hearing, that's not true.
No, it is. But I didn't think.
So
Yeah.
Go to work. Could I have one of those? May I have
It's
one?
cough drops, yeah.
Well, but, thank you.
I started,
Oh, what the hell happened?
last night I was fine when I left.
Wait a minute,
work.
wait a minute.
I did laundry till 10
that's all you
o'clock.
get.
Sorry, I put the,
Hold on.
Or we want more people.
Right.
Well, you mentioned. You missed it. It's too much.
In the meeting I was in, they were talking more about the lack of drivers
you see it, how it's fucking
and
up. I posted
how
it.
difficult it was to
Huh?
hire
I
drivers.
think that is how it's
Same thing with school bus drivers,
They're open yet,
Um,
yeah. Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're actually, I mean,
We were there
this is laying
Sunday.
drivers off. Hey, look at them.
So I'll probably go there for breakfast.
6:30 to 2 for breakfast.
Yeah, and that's right,
Did you give that letter to Kristen?
Well,
Ripta?
due to the lack of funding from the state.
Don't lose that letter. I get yelled at when I lose that letter.
They asked for 18, they got 10.
What was it now? I
Transportation.
Talks to River.
think I scared it and I got sidetracked.
Absolutely.
It's about $1.5 million in the school budget. It's like, it's serious,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, if using smaller buses, if ridership is an issue,
Correct.
you know, if you've got 5 or 6 people on the bus, you don't need a 40-foot bus.
It's the van, yeah.
You know,
I think they have a problem with having meetings, and they just don't want them in there. And I think that's become, yeah,
Seem very standoffish, that they.
yeah. Mhm.
Did I email it to you?
You know, like one of these, like,
I emailed it to you.
Director.
I know. I know. You know, the other thing is, and I think that pay raises needed to happen.
Flashlights on, Paul.
What did it go, what did it?
25, 33 from 21, from nearly $4.
Let me know when you're ready.
But, you know, with that, you're not gonna make up the cost.
Nice,
You know that. You have to do it. You're not gonna make up the cost.
nice, that's a coffee shop?
That's a coffee shop in the morning and then at night it's a martini bar.
Looks too rich for me.
What is that?
That's my niece's place.
Where's that?
That's
I
it.
don't know.
That was,
Wow, very nice.
Look at the special. Italian. All right, I'll show.
Ready when you are, ready?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Ready?
Yeah.
I have these, or these yours?
Meeting call to order. Today is Tuesday, February 27th. It is now 6:50 PM. Town Council in the Town Council Chambers, 1170 Main Street, West Warwick, Rhode Island.
Already did those.
We already did the prayer and we already did the Pledge of Allegiance.
Councilman Mark Dennison,
Here?
Councilman Jason Licciardi,
Here.
Councilman Jay Nestia,
Here.
Council Vice President Mary Beth Williamson,
Here,
Council President Dave Goffin.
Here.
There is a forum on record. Auditor presentation of FY 2023.
Good evening, counselors. Before you, you have the fiscal year 2023 hard copy of the financial statements and also a copy of the presentation. And Mary Sahady is here to present the summary of our audit.
good evening, everyone.
Even.
Good evening. Guess I'm a little short for this, huh? So as Kristen indicated, I'm Mary Sahadi. I'm the partner in the firm of Haig Sahadi and Company, and we are your outside auditors. So what we have in front of you, or what you have in front of you, is your fiscal 2023 financial report, as well as I believe she shared with you the presentation. So again, stop me anytime as we go through the presentation, but I will do an overview of the statements themselves. And if you have any questions either tonight or later on, you can obviously forward them to me through Kristen, and I'd be happy to answer any of your specific questions. The financial statements start with a slight introduction. It lists the town officials, the town council, the town manager, your school committee, as well as some of your department directors. The financial statements, really, the format hasn't changed from last year to this year. The independent audit report, which is really our only responsibility in the report itself, that's where we opine on the financial statements as to whether they fairly present the financial condition of the town of West Warwick. So the first report is the independent audit report, is then followed by what is referred to as management discussion and analysis. And this is a section of the financial statement, which back in a number of years ago, when the GASB introduced this particular section in the financial statements, it gave management the opportunity to provide the reader of the document in condensed form and in narrative form, some of the information with regard to that fiscal year's year-end data, as opposed to looking at just the numbers, which is what you see for the most part in the remaining part of the document. The basic financial statements include here in West Warwick, the government-wide financial statements. That is the section of the financial statements where the information is converted to full accrual and the ability is to be able to compare the town of West Warwick to other municipalities throughout the country. The second set of basic financial statements are your governmental funds. And so here you'll see that there is a division between what's referred to as the major funds and the non-major funds. Your major funds here in West Warwick are your general operating fund as well as your school unrestricted fund. The remaining funds are considered non-major, but they are presented here in the other supplementary information section if you want to see the detail of all of the combining statements for both your town special revenue, your school department special revenue, as well as your capital projects. They start on page 122 of the report. The required supplemental information is where you would report your budgetary information. So you will see on pages 96 to 99, you're going to see the general fund first. That's going to show you the budget to actual for your general fund, and then followed by the unrestricted school budget and actual. In required supplemental information is also information with regard to each of your pension plans and your OPEB plan.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to follow along with you.
Right.
Where, here or are we in this book? Where are we?
Well, this is
Yeah.
the presentation,
Okay.
which is a summary of the book.
Okay.
So when I refer to particular pages, they're going to be in the book. So they're going to be in your financial statements
Okay.
themselves.
All right.
And that's really more for your reference to go back later if you want to read anything specific. in
Slipping
them.
through pages, I'm not retaining anything you're saying, so.
Okay. No problem, which is why I offered to answer any questions at a later date if you have questions. So the independent auditors report. So what is that and what are we doing? So we're opining on the financial statements that are fairly presented in all material respects of the financial position of the town. That's on page 1. We also report on page 177, a report on the town's internal controls. So we also look at controls over compliance with laws and regulations, and we report on those controls. So in both reports, you receive no findings. So in the town's independent auditors report, it's referred to as unmodified, which means it has no findings. And in the internal control report, which is on page 177 again, there are no findings. The report, though, the auditor's report, just to bring to your attention, there is something called the emphasis of matter paragraphs. Now, you didn't have that in the prior year financial statements because we would only write that when we want to emphasize something, right? So this year, there was a new GASB that came out. It was a GASB that had to do with subscription-based applications. And so we wrote about those subscription-based applications, which are more like leases on software. That's really what it is. There was no material effect in your financial statements, but we needed to identify them because it was a GASB, a generally accepted accounting standard, that came into play this year. So we had to address that. And we also addressed in your report this year, the fact that your private pension plan was transferred to MERS, effective for this fiscal year. So that was something that we emphasized in the report. You don't always see that paragraph, but you did see it this year. Followed in the next section of the financial statement is the management discussion and analysis. That's on pages 4 through 12 in the report. Again, this is really where the town has the opportunity to provide the reader of the financial statements an overview of the town's finances and activities. It allows you to talk a little bit about the economic factors. So here you really, in that section, you talk about the tax rate. You also talk about the total amount of your budget, and you also discuss in there some of the projects that are ongoing and those that have been completed. So it's really just a summary. It's considered required supplementary. We don't audit it. It's really part of the management's ability, again, to provide an overview. The pages 13 through 16 in the financial report are the government-wide financial statements. Here you will see what is presented on the accrual basis of accounting, and I bring that to your attention because in the government-wide financial statements, you'll see the capital assets and all of the debt reported, where in your governmental fund financial statements, so the ones you work with on a day-to-day basis, your general fund, as well as your school unrestricted, they're reported on what's referred to as a modified accrual basis of accounting. So you're not capitalizing your capital assets or carrying your debt on the balance sheet. So that's really what the differences are. There are three components to your net position. One is your investment in capital assets net. You have restricted net position of $5.6 million, and you have a negative unrestricted net position. And the negative unrestricted net position is really derived from the fact that you have $181,000 worth of pension liability at June 30, 23, and $53 million worth of OPEB liability at June 30, 23. And that's definitely not uncommon throughout all of the communities. If you were to look at other communities and their financial statements, you would see something very much the same. The next slide really just talks about what I just said. The next net position in capital assets is the $62 million. That is the net difference between the capital assets that you're carrying on the books minus any debt related to those capital assets. So that's how that number is derived. The restricted funds are just as you would expect them to be. They are restricted for varying categories or functions within government here in the town of West Warwick. And then the $205 million of unrestricted, again, 181 of that is derived from your pension liability and 53 is derived from your OPEB liability. One of the pages that is just an excerpt out of the document itself, just for your interest, if you will, is on the next slide. And here we're just really showing you the comparison of the governmental activities and picking out a couple of the items or areas within the revenues and the expenditures that have significant differences between fiscal year ended 2022 and 2023. The first one to note is operating grants and contributions. This increase was primarily an increase in education state aid. So you had a very nice increase this year in state aid for education, and that's why you're seeing an increase from 44 million to 50 million in 23. The same is true with the motor vehicle, although the dollars are not nearly as high, but the same is true with the motor vehicle phase out taxes. You had an increase in that amount due to the phase out program from the state of Rhode Island. So that revenue is considered a general revenue, and it increased from 2.6 million to $5.7 million in 23. The expenditures have, and we can talk about them a little bit further on when we talk about the budget and actual, but you can see the public safety expenditures went from just shy of $20 million to just shy of $26 million. Some of that has to do with the increased overtime costs due to the reduction in staffing that you have here in West Warwick. And some of it also has to do with the budgeting for the pension. The budget for the pension, and I'll stop here just for a minute to talk about that, and I'm sure you know, but when you put your budget together, it was very early on. It was before you were transferring your assets to the mayor's program. So the budgetary process included the budget for the pension in an area within your budget, and we highlight that on the budget and actual page, but in an area of the budget that is not where you're now based on the payroll and how pension is being, or retirement is being paid, is being paid out of public safety. And you'll see that in a couple of other areas, but it's not as clear because the numbers aren't quite as large. So even Public Works, if you look at the line right below it, you're seeing an increase. That increase is primarily due to the reclassification of the pension expense. And then lastly, the education costs went from just shy of $74 million to $79.4 million. And the majority of that is specific to the School Building Authority Capital Fund, as well as the Rhode Island Energy Resource Fund. The next section of the financial statements are what's referred to as the governmental financial statements. So here, again, you have two types of funds, if you will. You have major funds. They're calculated by a formula. Here in West Warwick, it is your general fund as well as your school unrestricted. And then you have a number of non-major funds, and they again are all detailed in the report themselves, but they're aggregated on pages 17 to 25. They're in the aggregate form, but if you want to see the detail of them all, they are in the latter part of the document under supplementary. Proprietary funds are on the full accrual. And in the proprietary funds, you have the wastewater authority is your major fund, the fund you were just talking about shortly before I came up. And then you have a number of non-major funds. You have the Civic Center, you have the Municipal Court, and you have school lunch. The Internal Service Fund is considered a proprietary fund by definition, and that's your healthcare management fund. So that's what that fund represents. At the end of the current fiscal year, the governmental funds reported a combined fund balance of 18 million. The unassigned fund balance, which is of course a useful measure, was $4.7 million, and the remaining of it was non-spendable, restricted, or committed. And that is on page 17 of your financial statements. You will see the detail of those amounts. Your general fund specifically, since we're always talking about the general fund totaled $6,330,000. Of that, $6,080,000 is unassigned, or 96%, and 4% is included in your non-spendable category, and that is related to your prepaid items. So the $6 million of unassigned, that is money that's available for commitment, and that represents about 8% of your fiscal 23 budget. So that's actually a good amount in terms of being set, having in unassigned 8% is a good amount. Your school department, it had a fund balance of 6.7 million, and that represents about 10%. The next slide talks about the net change in fund balance. So the general fund had an increase this year of 1.4 million. The school unrestricted change was a plus of 777,000. The non-major funds had a change of negative 3.6 million, but to bring that to your attention only because the majority of that, $3.6 million of that, came out of the town capital project for which you had the fund balance to spend. So basically, you had the revenue in that account from a prior fiscal year, and in fiscal 23, you expended the dollars. So that fund, you spent $3.2 million on those town capital projects in fiscal 23. And again, that is further in the back of the financial statements if you want to look at the details. The proprietary funds, full accrual, again, they represent the wastewater authority, the civic center, the municipal court, the school lunch, and the internal service fund. The wastewater being your largest fund, that had a change from the prior year of an increase of $1.4 million. The majority of that $1.4 million was a transfer in of $867,000, and revenue exceeding the expenditures of 707, and that is on page 21 to 25. The Civic Center, minimal change, 8,237. Again, municipal court, minimal change, that was a negative 3,572. And your school lunch has a net position of just shy of $2 million, but it did have a negative change this year in the sense that the expenditures exceeded the revenue by $84,000. And then your internal service fund, again, that's your healthcare management fund, as well as your energy efficiency fund. So your healthcare management fund of the current year surplus of 569,318 related to your healthcare management, and 252 related to the energy efficiency fund. So third set of financial funds that are included in the basic financial statements are the fiduciary funds. The fiduciary funds include your pension and your OPEB trust fund, as well as your custodial fund. Your pension and OPEB trust fund, you'll notice that the pension fund itself, those assets have been transferred. So if you were to look at fiscal '22, you would have about a $49 million net position, and that net position in '23 was transferred, and so it's showing a zero. And then as far as your net position in your OPEB trust fund, you're currently at $5,590,985, and that represents about 10.2% funded for your OPEB. And then lastly, it's a small fund, but it fits into the same category. It's your fiduciary fund, which is your scholarship fund. The net position here is $37,000. It doesn't have a lot of activity in it. There has been no additional revenue added to this fund in '23. And it had a $1,000 scholarship that was given out, which is the same amount of the scholarship that was given out in '22. So those are the basic financial statements. So again, the first few pages were your government-wide financial statements, and then it was followed by your governmental financial statements, that being your general fund in your school unrestricted, as well as your non-major, your proprietary funds, which are all your self-balancing funds, and then your fiduciary funds. Next in the document itself are the notes to the financial statements. They include pages 28 through 95. And they include in note 1 a summary of the significant accounting policies. Nothing there has changed significantly from the prior year. The policies here in the town have remained the same. Then a number of various balance sheet accounts are detailed, as well as the pension and the OPEB details. We include in those balance sheet accounts information in particular about your capital assets and your debt. So if you want to look at what your debt is, included in the document itself, you'll see the debt broken out between your general debt and the debt that relates to the business type activities, which primarily is your wastewater fund. And then there's notes on risk management, commitments, and contingencies as well. We talked about the required supplementary at the start of this discussion this evening. Management discussion and analysis is considered required supplementary, although shown at the beginning of the document. The next section in the document itself is the also considered required supplementary, and that is where you will see your general fund and your school department budgetary comparison. So again, Kristen does an excellent job during the course of the year. So the monthly reports that you receive are going to mirror what you see here in the document. There were no significant audit entries, so there was nothing really necessary to adjust in the documents itself. And as I said earlier, the only thing we did this year that was slightly different is we asterisked the differences in the budgetary process for the pension expense. So if you go to, and I'm sorry, I guess I didn't write that page down, but I'll tell you in case you want to flip there. If you go to page 96, that's where you're going to see the budget comparison for the general fund. The general fund had a surplus of $1.4 million this year. Some of the focused areas in terms of positive variances or favorable variances were in your tax revenue. You had some strong collections this year, so your revenues were up over your budget by $529,000. Your intergovernmental revenue also had a favorable variance of $1.3 million, and that was due to the state aid to school that we spoke about earlier. And a couple of your departments also incurred favorable variances this year, so they collected more in revenue than you had originally anticipated, and that was in the town clerk and finance as well as the building department. On the expenditure side of the ledger, if you will, your general fund did have an unfavorable variance of $684,000, and that was due to legal expenses that you had not anticipated when you put the budget together, as well as a shortfall in public safety of $5,990,000. And again, this is a combined unfavorable variance for a number of reasons. A lot of it had to do with the overtime to cover the reduced staffing. You had some attrition. You had some injury on duty this year over last year, and then you're continuing to have COVID-related absences. So that really is where that's coming from, as well as, again, the reallocation of the pension expenses due to moving the mayor's money. Public safety is a lot of the same issues, right? It's staffing issues, and because of those staffing issues, you were not able to get some of the projects completed that you had initially budgeted in that area. And then lastly, you have a $5.9 million favorable variance in the category called miscellaneous, but that's, again, the budgeting and the reallocation of the pension expense, because initially, when you had the private plan, that was where you were budgeting your pension expense. The school budget also had a surplus. This year, their surplus was $77,000. The focus areas in revenue had to do, again, with a favorable variance in state aid. You had Medicare reimbursements that were just shy of what you had anticipated, or what they had anticipated of $74,000. And you had other revenue that came in less than what they had anticipated in the amount of $360,000. On the salary side, they had favorable variances in salaries themselves of $45,000. They had employee benefits that had a favorable variance of almost $900,000, and they slightly overspent their capital outlay. So that's really a sum of what's included in the required supplementary section. And that is really a summary, a quick summary of the budget and actual for the general fund and the school unrestricted. The supplementary information, I think we spoke about this earlier, that's where you're going to find all the combining non-major funds. They start on page 123 and they go really to the end of the document. There are a couple of other supplementary pages that are included based on requirements of the state, and they include the tax collector's annual report, as well as the supplemental transparency report, which is referred to as the MTP2, if you've heard that talked about in the past. That gets submitted to the state, gets reviewed, and then gets included as supplementary information in the document. So that is a summary of your financial statements.
Does anyone have any questions?
It's a lot to absorb.
It does. That's why if you come up with questions after the fact, either Kristen can help you with them, or if you are looking for an answer from us as the audit firm, we would be happy to get you the answers. And the other document that you will receive is a document that's called the single audit. It's based on uniform guidance. That's where we select based on the rules and regulations, programs on a rotation basis to be tested. And this year it's Title I and special education. So that will be coming. And then lastly, in terms of reports that the town of West Warwick received, you did receive a management or two management comments. They both had to do really with timeliness. One had to do with timeliness of preparing the bank reconciliations. It is unfortunate based on, I'm assuming their busy schedule, but their bank reconciliations for June 30, 2023 were not reconciled until later in the fall, in November sometime. And just not good practice. I mean, bank reconciliations really should be done on a monthly basis. And, you know, I think Kristen has hers done by the 15th of the month. Now, sometimes that can't happen and things come up and people get busy, but really the reconciliation of bank statements should really happen monthly, and any differences should be communicated on a real regular basis. And that is also true, again, on the school side, in terms of being able to maintain adequate internal controls. There were a number of audit entries that were prepared on the school side, most of which were client requested, but they were requested way after year end. So it's important, again, to reconcile your books and records on a timely basis and make the appropriate journal entries when necessary. Questions?
So just, Mark, we're gonna have to put this out there online also for the public to see, but could you just touch on two key points? The surplus in the town side and the surplus on the school side. Could you just reiterate those two numbers one more time?
Sure. So on the town side, the unrestricted, unassigned is 6,080,000, I believe. And that represents, hold on, I just don't want to give you the wrong numbers here.
And that was an
That's
increase
right.
of 1.4 million.
That's an increase of 1.4 million this year, that's
Yeah.
correct. And that represents, because it's always important, the percentages, right? 8%. Right. On the town side, that represents about 8% of your total budget. Thank you.
Sorry.
And then on the school side, they have an unrestricted fund balance of 6.7 million, and that represents about 10% of their budget.
How much of an increase was that over last year?
The school side was a much smaller increase. I think it was 77.
7.7.
777,000.
Yep.
I just want those numbers to.
Sure,
reflect.
no, I understand, and I understand why,
Yeah.
so.
No.
But quite frankly, 10% of the school budget and 8% of the town budget is a healthy place to be in terms of your unrestricted fund balances.
Any questions?
No, I mean, these are numbers that Kristen has provided to us
Exactly.
previously, so there's no surprises,
Yeah.
nothing's changed. yet.
Exactly, and again, we didn't have any findings. There's nothing to report on in terms of, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. That might change things, but that's not the case here in West Warwick. She does a good job.
And I want to
Thank you.
thank Kristen. I mean, a lot of compliment here that you get everything done by usually the 15th of every month, which is good. And thank you to you and your department for running a tight ship
Absolutely.
down there. Because if we weren't, we wouldn't have the extra $1.4 million. We'd be overspending. So, and if anybody was here on the council less than 6 years ago, that unrestricted fund was down to under $50,000, if I remember correctly. And so over the past 6 years, bringing it back up over to 6 million is
Yeah. Excellent.
excellent work. So
With minimal tax increase.
absolutely, with mineral tax increases.
Good management.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody involved. Every department,
Right.
it's teamwork all the way
It's
around.
teamwork all over,
You
exactly.
know, if every department wasn't focused on it, we'd be overspending our budget. So good job. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for your
Mary.
time
Thank you
tonight.
very much.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes from the February sixth, 2024 regular town council meeting and minutes from the February sixth, 2024 executive session.
Actually, we can do the one more. We do the consent agenda in its entirety usually.
Oh, she does it all?
Yep.
Okay. And cancellations of taxes in the amount of $1,512 as requested by the tax assessor.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Move second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Business licenses, request from St. Joseph's Church Society for a raffle license, a request from Little Bees Barbecue for hawkers and peddlers, a request from Sherry's for a victualling house license.
Recuse myself.
I have a motion.
Thought I had one question on one.
A motion before we can
Yeah.
discuss it.
Move the business licenses.
Second.
Second.
Move second, discussion.
You can write it down. So this is a food truck. Is this to go anywhere, whenever, or because it's not specific, so it can be anywhere at any time? Okay.
Well, the only thing is they do have to stay so many feet from in-like businesses.
Right. Or get permission to be on their property.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
so for instance, if the barbecue place can't park across the street from Ferrucci's, they have to stay 1,000 feet away from, so. Any questions? Any public comment on these licenses? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Right. Appointments and resignations, request from Kevin Malanzi for appointment to the planning board as an alternate member for the term ending July 2025.
I move the name Kevin Malonzi.
I second.
Moving second, discussion. I think Kevin's here tonight.
Oh, is he?
Yes,
Well,
he's.
Sneak in?
sorry,
Oh, he
send
did
the
sneak
notes
in.
back.
Yes.
For the record, I have to recuse myself because of a
Oh.
planning and voting decision that I disagree with, but
Okay.
I mean, Kevin is a business person here in town. Obviously, he's very much involved in a lot of different things. He also has food trucks all over the place too. I think he'll be a welcome addition to the planning board.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Kevin.
Move the name of Nick Lanigan.
Second.
Moving second, Nick reached out to me on this. I know he's a member of the West Warwick Baseball Board, very involved in youth activities, and he has a couple of children of his own who are very involved in youth activities. So he reached out to me about this board, and I told him, you know, he'd be a good fit, but we do have to figure out where the board is as far as, because I see another resignation further down.
I have a comment on that. And I don't know Mr. Lanigan at all, but having been a member of the board when it first started 20 years ago, I think I'm just gonna mention it here. You know, I've been on the council for 7 years, and in the beginning of that, I was appointed as the liaison to this committee. And I want to say there maybe been 5 meetings in 7 years. I think, you know, and what we're seeing is a trend now. We've lost the chairman, the vice chair, who's coming up in about 10 minutes. He wrote a letter, concerning letter as to why he resigned. And we lost a 20-year member in Paul Richards. And so the question has come up to us, and I think it's fitting, you know, I'm the liaison, so what are we doing? Like, what is the direction of the committee? Why are they even here? Before we make any appointment, I think we need to figure out what this man is applying.
My suggestion would be to put that on the agenda so the full council can discuss it, and also people that are interested can discuss it, but that's not on your agenda tonight. This is just appointment and resignations.
But what are you appointing for, though?
Doesn't
We're
make
appointing a
it,
person to do what?
you're appointing to the Recreation Committee by virtue of the ordinance language or the language of the the charter. But if you want to address it at another time, put it on the agenda as it relates to why does the town of West Warwick still have a Recreation Committee?
Okay.
Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Play there for reappointment to the library board of trustees. Come to any board.
Move the name of Andrea Plazia.
Second?
Move second, any discussion? Colin, you want to give us an outline of this Plasiac, scouting report, yes, if as you want.
Might as well stand there. It's next three, so, yeah.
No, that's why you're here.
So Andrea, in common with Linda, who comes after her, is a long-standing member of the library board. A great deal of institutional knowledge, which is incredibly helpful to me, and a dedicated and supportive board member.
Any questions for Colin? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Did it.
Request from Linda Goldman for reappointment to the library board of trustees for a term ending February 2027.
Move the name of Linda Goldman.
Second?
Moved and seconded. I could speak for Linda too. I know she's your constituent, but she's usually here during all budget times.
Yeah.
She's
Yep.
usually here for reappointment also. She's very involved. I know.
She is
Yeah.
very engaged and also the vice president of the board, so serves when the president's unavailable.
Always pleasant to deal with.
Yeah.
Even during those budget times, even the tough cuts and whatever else, so. Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Request from Josephine Zaki for reappointment to the library board of trustees for a term ending February 2027.
Move the name of Joe Sassy.
Second?
Okay.
Different one.
So Joe is the most recent member of the Board of Trustees.
Yes.
She replaced Matthew Silva, who resigned.
So that would, obviously Matt's term must have been up, because I thought we just appointed Joe.
Yeah, you did,
Yeah,
yeah, you did. It
okay.
was close to the
Yeah.
end. So Joe has a long association with the library, having run the Friends of the Library group. And I think I reported to the council last year. She actually won an award in Rhode Island
Yeah.
from the Rhode Island Library Association for being the outstanding volunteer in the public library community in the state. So she's, again, a great addition to the board.
Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Colin.
Sure.
Move to accept the resignation of Chris Messier with regret.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion?
Chris actually asked me to read the letter that he wrote. So as the position I'm in as the liaison, I'm gonna read the letter. It was addressed to the town manager. Mark, it is with regret that I write to inform you of my decision not to seek reappointment to the Recreation Committee. My dedication to serving the community and contributing to the betterment of our town has always been my foremost priority. Over the past term, we have encountered challenges in working with members of the town council, particularly concerning the Recreation Committee's responsibilities. Despite our best efforts to collaborate either individually or as a group, it has become apparent that there is an inability to work constructively toward restoring the committee to its former responsibility. I believe in the importance of the Recreation Committee's role in enhancing the town's recreational spaces and green areas for the benefit of our fellow citizens. However, the current dynamics within the town council hinder the committee's ability to fulfill its potential and effectively serve the community. While it saddens me to make this decision, I feel that stepping back from the Recreation Committee is the best course of action at this time. I sincerely hope that in the future, the town council can overcome its challenges and reconsider the committee's responsibilities. Should there be a positive shift in the town council's approach and a return to the committee's former role becomes feasible, I would be more than willing to reconsider my decision. I want to express my gratitude for the opportunity to serve the town and its citizens during my tenure on the Recreation Committee. Please feel free to contact me if there are any further discussions or developments regarding the Recreation Committee. Sincerely, Christopher R. Messier.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
New business, discussion of road construction on Secret Avenue.
All right. So I've been in touch with Jeff Roussel, who is member in on our water board that we have appointed. And speaking with Jeff, he meets with the director of Kent County Water Authority quite a bit. And Dave Simmons wrote a 3-page letter that I'm not going to read the entirety of it. I will sum it up. I had a conversation with Mr. Simmons this afternoon, and basically, he's saying the same thing that everybody else is the conditions of Queeset Avenue, are not acceptable. He's looking forward to finishing this project as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. He will be holding the contractor, the feet to the fire. One of the things that's going to be done is, if you're on Queeset Avenue, and I'm just gonna say the fire station is a main point, which everybody knows, where, from the fire station down to the Queeset Inn, where there are major issues. When you go on, it's like a roller coaster. That's going to be the first thing that's going to be fixed as soon as the spring weather comes. After that's fixed, so you can drive on it, they're going to go from, say, the next stop, say Queeset Inn again, Queeset Inn all the way to Bald Hill Road, and begin tearing up the road and doing the lines over. The hope is the project will be finished by the season's end of 2024, which would be October. The last part of the entire project is going to be going over, and again, please, if I have the wrong lingo, but in layman's terms, they're going to put, say, a top coat over the road to finish the road, and that will be the entire road, Queeset Ave. So basically, we're gonna be under construction for a while. So he hopes that it can get done in 2024. Worst case scenario, that final coating will come in the spring of 2025. It all depends on many things. And, if you work outside, and you call in for 2 days of rain, things aren't gonna get done. So, in Ward 4, because most of that is Ward 4, and I do get a lot of complaints, and most of the complaints about how awful the condition is, but it's also about the detours. And I spoke with him about what's going to happen to try and be proactive in the upcoming season. But with detours, people need to know, we all face it. When you're going through detours, it usually goes through somebody's neighborhood. And people are upset, they're going to be detoured, they're going to be late, they're running late, so what do? You speed up. Believe me, I've witnessed it, for the last probably year and a half, of going through stop signs and going 40 to 45 miles an hour in a zone where, the neighbors don't do that. So it's very frustrating, and I think I can speak for everyone. We get the calls, and those calls, like mine, go to Chief Levine. And the expectation is we can't have an officer 24 hours a day at a corner, and I get it. And as soon as that officer is there for, say, maybe an hour or so, and sits there or drives around, people see the cop, what do? You slow down. You do the right thing. You look in your mirror, you wait for the police to leave, or they can't see you, and then you go back to doing the wrong thing. So, it's not an easy fix, but, the chief, I bothered him, I don't know how many times this year with different things about that. And it is frustrating, I think, for both of us. But bottom line is, people need to follow the laws. If you go to a stop sign, you stop. It's that simple. So.
Okay, did we,
So we're on it.
did anybody, I don't know if I missed it, did we get contact information, a line of contact for people that did have hit potholes and whatever throughout this
The
winter?
Water Authority is handling it, so they can be contacted directly at their main line.
We can have them
And their
contact.
customer service agents.
All right,
will
so they don't have
address
to, because originally I know they were having to contact Boyle and Fogarty, so they can come.
They were Kent County has been responsive.
have been.
Unfortunately, it's after the fact, and Cohasset Avenue is in terrible shape. There's no doubt about it. Jeff Roussel, wanted the rest of the council to have the letter that David Simmons wrote to Mark. It is very thorough. It does explain that the town has no liability. Kent County is indeed fielding those complaints that are coming now, which takes it off our plate, which is a very good thing. And the board is more than willing to sit down with anybody who wants to sit down to discuss what's going to happen in the spring. So.
Well, one, we should is going to be added to correspondence so people can view this letter, this 3-page letter, or made public.
You can have
And
it.
yeah, I didn't,
Part of-
I
part of your agenda
I actually
documents.
asked,
Part of the meeting.
yeah, I
I
asked.
just want to make sure, I mean, there's
Sure, it's
probably a
part
lot
of
of
your
people.
agenda documents. Give me
No,
one,
it's,
right?
it actually, well, it can be now. Yeah,
Yeah,
we just
but-
got it. We just got it.
I just know
We
that
just
people
got
want
it.
to,
Yes.
and then specifically something that's mentioned in here, about the performance bond. Is that something potentially that for some of the people that had stuff go wrong with their cars that Kent County Water Authority could actually,
That's something, there's something for the Water Authority to say. That document is from Mr. Rousseau as a representative.
No,
Of the
it's
water-
from, it's actually
It's actually-
from David Simmons.
Oh, I'm sorry, if it's from
Yes.
Mr. Simmons, then that's from the Water Authority, so the Water Authority can respond to
Okay.
the intent and interpretation of the letter.
well, we'll just make this, we'll make it public and then if
Yes.
anybody has any other
Yes,
questions.
good
then-
idea.
Jay, in your conversation today, did they say when, I know the weather's starting to break, supposed to be in the 60s, did they say when they're gonna start back up?
He's trying to get started in April, end of March, beginning of April. So,
Yeah, I saw Jeff Riley.
oh, sorry.
I talked with Jeff this afternoon also, and they're gonna have a pre-construction meeting that he's gonna involve me in. So once they set that up, we'll all get together, we'll have a pre-construction meeting. I'll notify the town manager and let you know what's going on when they're starting.
That might be a good idea to do those meetings with any major project with Kent County Water, because sometimes
Yeah.
there is lack of communication both ways, but yes.
Right now, that, I don't know of any other major project they have going on. We converse all the time as far as what projects we all have going on.
So one of the biggest concerns, and I know Jay's probably heard it, I know I've heard it from business owners down there, is when the road's gonna be closed and what's gonna affect their business. For instance, later in the season this year, they had Gendron's blocked right off front and back. Nobody can get to it. So, I know I received a text message and then, now a new car wash is down there and obviously springtime's their busy time. Are they gonna be blocked off that day and nobody can get to their car wash? That's the thing that I think we need to be a little, or Kent County Water needs to be a little better with, is letting the businesses know what days and where they're gonna be at what specific time. And I'm not saying at 2 PM, I'm saying Monday to Friday, we're gonna be on this section of the road, or Tuesday to Wednesday, we'll be on this section, Thursday, Friday, we'll be on this section.
Okay.
They need to do a better job letting the businesses know on Cohasset Ave, because they're bringing employees in, these restaurants and whatever are bringing everybody in. It's gonna be slow times for them where they could actually probably reduce staff or whatever, but
When I sit and talk with them, I'll make sure they give me a better understanding, and at least if they can notify me, then I can notify, everybody that I can.
If it's helpful to them, I mean, we have the Code Red system. If they have somebody that wants to put together the database of the list of businesses and get them imported into their system, we can do a directed general call, email, or text blast just to them. So,
well, that's gonna take a lot of going every.
but I mean,
business
I
to let
don't,
them know
it's,
that.
Well, the issue, like, when you look at Queeset Avenue, on both sides, it's all business.
Business top to
So,
bottom.
so no matter where you are, it's going to impact, you have those cut-throughs, Coit Avenue and Lockwood, which I'm sure are gonna be the detours now,
course,
but, and then on your end, Coolest and all that,
Yeah,
but-
pretty much from Church Street to Route
it's
2.
all, it's all business,
Right.
All business.
So I think it's just gonna be affected at different points at different times.
Let's see if
There's
we
no
can
way
get 'em to
around
put
it.
some more
Perhaps
digital
we could have
signs out,
something
too.
that can be posted on the website too, so just so people know. I mean, yes, we need to let the businesses know, but people that are intending to go
That
might,
also-
might change
I
their.
think a lot of people are avoiding that road altogether if they
Yeah.
can right now.
Yeah. And I think it's key, I think what you said was, David Simmons talked about, yes, they know that there is a requirement that they pave curb to curb.
Right.
However, that might not get done until the following spring, potentially, so.
Well, there's no easy way to do it,
Yeah.
when you look at it, and I'm not faulting Kent County Water at all.
No.
I mean, it has to
It's
be
a big
done.
project, right?
He emphasized the piece at the end of Cohasset, where Pep Boys is and Route 2. He said that's something where he compared it to the Washington Bridge. He said, I don't want my name on that because that's
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, again, it's all about communication though. I think people will get less upset if they know that, especially businesses too.
Right. Yeah, and I'll do my best to, like I said, a lot of times, they weren't very, you know, communicating with me, and I know they were busy and they had things going on, but if we can communicate more, it'll make things a lot less stressful on people, for sure.
Jim, you have something on this?
Just in general, in David's letter, he indicated that the authority will give weekly updates.
Yes.
So it's going to be posted on their website. So that upcoming week's worth of activities will be posted. So if it's from point, let's say Cohasset to the fire station or wherever, it's going to be posted on the website. I just wanted to point that out.
We need to get people to know that it's gonna be posted on the website. That's where I think the disconnect is.
Well, it'll be on the Kent County website and whatever else needs to be done, but I just wanted to point that out in the letter.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions or comments on Cohasset Ave? Thank you, Jim. Mark?
So the stage one report was submitted to RIDE on February 15th, which is essentially their needs assessment about programmatic concerns or needs in space and facilities availability. Right now, we're awaiting the review and feedback from the Rhode Island Department of Education on that submission. In the meantime, we have a meeting tomorrow night of the School Building Committee to consider a request for qualifications for architectural and engineering services. So we expect that to be reviewed tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, while waiting for that feedback from RIDE, they'll start the foundation of our stage two report, which will eventually contain the options and recommendations on where to move or how to proceed to fulfill the needs that have been identified. That'll take months. So as soon as we have an update on what we get back from the assessment of stage one, we'll move on to that in a more formal fashion. But we're also working with the school department to come up with a public presentation in conjunction with a joint council and school committee meeting to kind of say where we are, where we think we're going. We're just trying to find the right balance to have adequate information to give out. It's obviously nice if you can do it once we have the options and recommendations before us, but waiting until then will be too late in our opinion. So we're working on putting something together, most likely to be held at the high school auditorium.
Any questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark.
Resolution for a change order for the 2024 town roadway improvement project.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moving second, Mark?
Just with a little bit of background first, since the next two items are change order resolutions that I'm proposing to use American Rescue Plan funds for. Just as a reminder, we need to expend all of our rescue plan funds by December 31st of 2026, but they all need to be appropriately allocated by the end of this calendar year. The amount that we have left to do is slight more than 2.3 million. Tonight, I'm proposing that we allocate a little more than 1.2 million of that, which will leave a balance of a little over 1 million left that we have to do over the year. However, that will increase because over the next couple of weeks, Chris and I will be going over all the previously approved allocations to identify any of those pockets that haven't been spent yet. And the department heads will go through each one to contact that vendor to see if there are outstanding bills, if the project just happened for less than we projected, or it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And we'll reallocate those or return those money to the pot, if you will, so we have the opportunity to use them by the end of this, or allocate them by the end of this year.
Mark,
So-
I know in the beginning, when we first started talking about ARPA, and we had a meeting, and it was a priority list, basically, where we wanted to go with it. Could you provide something to us, just to everyone, of where the money has been spent?
Yep, that
And then-
comes as a spreadsheet whenever I do the update. So we'll have another one after tonight because we'll we'll hopefully have these approved and we'll have it updated within days. I'll probably attach it on Friday. But just as a point, we did talk about a lot of priorities and there are a lot of them and a lot of options to consider. But just some of the ones that are still pending are like our Civic Center parking lot, co-share for the wastewater treatment facility, congressional project, should we get awarded that. We deflected a lot of IT infrastructure out of proposed capital last year. I'd still like to redo the town hall front entrance, but you know, that'll probably be a last minute decision. And then obviously, as mentioned, we have a lot of emergency flood cost that have come up with the 3 significant water events that we've had since December. So potentially we may need to use this, and obviously we'll be applying and begging, if you will, that we can get some reimbursement through FEMA on a vast majority of those.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the first one, as I mentioned, is a change order. It'll be change order number 2 to the 2023 roadway improvement bid 23-11. And again, proposing the use of American Rescue Plan funds for our 2024 roadway improvements. The contract was originally awarded to Miozy in the amount of a little bit more than 2.2 million. I'm proposing that we increase the award amount not to exceed $1,046,410.50 for rehabilitation of town roadways this construction season. And those funds will be available through American Rescue Plan. And just as a reminder, I had submitted to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. They have the bridge and roadway fund that the state funded this year, which allows for 33% reimbursement. So last construction season, we were reimbursed a little more than $234,000. Of that original submission, we have just under $223,000 that I expect to get reimbursed when we do this. The cost of some of the projects have changed since I did that submission, so I have to work with RIDOT to give them an update. I doubt they'll give us more money unless another town has deferred it, but the governor has spoken and intends on redoing that program again for the following, for FY25 on the state. So we'll be watching for that. Again, we only have a limited pool of American Rescue Plan funds left. So I'm hoping that reimbursement, instead of attacking an additional road this year, will be the pool money for road improvements in FY26 when we won't have American Rescue Plan funds to use.
Any questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
A resolution for a change order for 2024 River Point Park Road and Lot Improvements Project, ARPA funded.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Move second. Discussion, Mark?
So this one will be change order number 3 to the 2023 roadway improvement bid of 2023-11. And again, proposing use of American Rescue Plan funds. One of the things that we identified a while ago is the deficiency of the roadway around River Point Park and at least one of the major parking lots. So this proposal is to do that at the appropriate time, which will most likely be in the fall, right before construction season ends, when there's a lull in the sports activity there. Essentially to mill and overlay the entire roadway around and address the parking lot and public space in a more level manner near the Cal Ripken and the senior field to get that repaired. In the meantime, we'll use the millings again to put along the edges and the other parking lots, clean those up and have them compacted appropriately to make it a more efficient and safe place. So this one is for $214,600 and again, using American Rescue Plan funds with our contractor, Miozy.
Any questions for Mark? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
2024 Easter egg hunt details.
So I put, sorry, I just booked the Easter egg hunt for March 30th at Maisie Quinn. I spoke with Chris Mann. We're all set to do pretty much the same things last year. I have 5,000 eggs in my house right now, for the next month. But, so I'm just working out the details. The flyers will go out. It'll be all over social media. I'll give the details to the town manager, but just save the date, basically. It's a 9:30 a.m. start. And we'll have more details to come.
Fun time.
It's fun.
Surprise
It
eggs
is
are the
fun.
best.
Yeah.
Me? Yeah. It'll never happen.
Thank you, Jay.
Possible termination of Repta bus service in West Warwick.
I'll put this, Jay, go ahead.
All right. So there was a meeting held was it last week, I think, at the library. And, the discussion was the termination or cancellation of some of the busing that RIPTA provides to the town of West Warwick. So there were two sessions. Councilman Dennison went to the first.
Yep.
I went to the second. I'm not sure who was at first. I knew Rep. Naray was there for both, and I was with Chief Arone. And a lot of people gave testimony on how this would affect them, which really leads to how this is going to affect that people with disabilities, people going to school, people going to church, the social aspect of it. And I thought of some of it, but I mean, I went in there basically thinking, okay, you take away the bus service, what do you do with people? Where do they go? How do they get out? Which, could cause a domino effect to the issues that we're having now with mental health issues, which could lead to actually homelessness. And, I'm thinking, I've asked some questions. The people that were there can tell they're getting beat up over all this because, there's really there's all questions and no healthy answers. So one of the discontinuing services is going to be in Arctic and Crompton. And this is where we really need it. And these are the people that need it. So I'm just thinking it's going to affect West Warwick in some way, and it's going to be a negative way. We just got a report today from Colin, who sent this to us, that one of the issues is driver's pay. So they're agreeing to up the driver's pay by like $3 and change an hour or so. But they're also have a RIP that has an $8 million shortfall, which is a lot of money to make up. So at the beginning of April, this decision is in place to terminate some of these bus routes. And it's coming our way. So I don't know if there's any appetite for a discussion from us at a future meeting, try and be proactive with this, to think of if there's anything that we can do as a town to try and maybe put a Band-Aid on some of this until things get better.
So ironically, I know, I've had a few conversations with Rep. Norray. He's very passionate about it. He's probably fighting very hard on the state level to try to fix some of this. But some of the ideas that I threw out there with him, and I just know this because my uncle used to own Friendly Cab. And the state used to partner with the cab companies here in West Warwick and other cab companies throughout the state, where they would go to Clyde Towers or Robert Street and pick up individuals that need to go places. And obviously, a cab fare of $7 versus running a bus through here and, maybe not getting on that bus, but getting on another bus. And, one cab ride might take care of 10 buses before somebody jumps on it, right? So I don't know what they're doing, considering there's no more cab companies per se in West Warwick. I don't know if they're bringing anybody from out of town. I used to have like that information, and all it was that individual, that company would write a slip and then go to the state, and they would submit that monthly, and then they'd be reimbursed from the state. So maybe we don't need large buses to bring these people from place to place. Maybe we need single service or smaller buses, or, let's face it, the senior bus running that through West Warwick or whatever is probably more financially responsible than running a 32-foot bus through the whole state of Rhode Island, right? So, I mean, there are options out there, but we got to see what the state's still offering, because if they're still doing the, like the cab thing, maybe that's an opportunity to help residents say, hey, you know what, especially if they need that, and maybe they have to apply through social services or whatever, and maybe have to get that approval, but it's not a bad thing, because I know they do it for Clyde Tower, they were doing it for Clyde Towers and Robert Street for many, many years. In fact, I think that was the cab companies, the two West Warwick cab companies with their top revenue, they were making about $60,000 to $80,000 a year, doing that. But I'm sure it's a lot cheaper than running those buses through here. But again, I know everybody had, they're looking for ideas, but I'm gonna bring that back to Tom, because he's on the state level, and, obviously RIPTA is all regulated by the state and funded by the state. So, and an $8 million shortfall every year, that's a tough pill to swallow also. I mean, you gotta look at, what they can do. And then if you're increasing people's salaries, it's obviously that's gonna get even higher.
I understand the
Yeah.
business part of it. I think we all do, but we're still gonna be faced with that. What do I do? And
Yep.
it's gonna lead to that. People are stuck.
Mhm.
So,
So the thing that I took away from the meeting was that their largest barrier was that they didn't have enough drivers and they couldn't get drivers. Hopefully, again, it's a bit of an issue when you're trying to make up the $8 million shortfall and you're increasing the driver's wages and all that. But that was their biggest barrier, according to what we were told in the first meeting that day. Hopefully this bump in pay attracts some candidates that can fulfill those needs. But it is a tough spot. One of those lines goes right from Arctic right up to center of New England. And that's going to be completely eliminated. And that's not good for the folks around here. So, we have to do our best to somehow put some pressure on RIPTA and the state in getting them some much needed funding. I don't know that there's much we can do from this end, but we owe it to our folks in the town to try.
Is it true? It's not just these runs that are being talked about. All over the state,
all
there are
over the
runs that are
state.
being eliminated. So it's a bigger problem than just, we need to take care of our people
own,
that live
yeah.
here in West Warwick. There's no doubt about that. Transportation in general is an issue. If you listen to what the school tells us when they come, the overrun on transportation for kids being transported out of town, or somebody coming back into town, that might be homeless and living somewhere else. So it's a big problem, and I don't know what the answer is. I think it does have to happen at a minimum at the State House, but perhaps federally also.
Again, with all the town and city councils in
Yeah.
Kent County or other communities that are being affected, the only thing you can really do is get a resolution together, pass it out throughout the communities, send it up to the State House, make sure you put pressure on the Senate and the House to say to RIPTA, listen, you can't take that away from us, Warwick, because if you do, there's going to be problems. And ultimately, at the budget time, either money's going to be put into the budget for RIPTA or taken out. And RIPTA's going to understand, because they've tried this in the past, believe it or not, probably maybe 20 years ago, but they didn't have the personnel issue that they have right now. And the manager just told me that I guess their training program takes a while and you have to qualify and get a CDL. So like everything else, just like police departments across the state, they're lacking manpower. So, but I would suggest the council put together a resolution, send it to other communities, and then, see what type of work the senators and reps can do as far as getting support to stop them from taking this out of, basically it's a main line from north to south. And I was just gonna say, I think Mark hit the nail right on the head. I think one of our busiest stops is right there at CVS and the gazebo. There's always 5, 6 people over there sitting on the bench across from the gazebo waiting, because that's a bus stop. And Phoenix has actually been picking up lately too. People that are staying down there or renting or whatever, they're on the bus, they rent because they're on the bus line. And that's very concerning. So if we can draft something for the next council meeting, I know I won't be here, but I will support that draft. But I think we should put that on ASAP.
Which is next week.
Yeah, which is next week.
Unfortunately, I think there are other issues that the state legislature is having with RIPTA anyway. I don't think that this is the only thing, so, but.
It's a bomb that's been waiting to explode.
Yes, I think that's true.
Well, they want to move it, they want to do a lot of different
Yeah,
things, and then
yeah.
I know there's
With
been
dissension.
public,
Yeah.
dissension between
But
Senate
it wasn't that long ago that RIPTA expanded. I mean, it's only been a couple of years that they even go to Center of New England. I remember like headed that direction. I'm not super familiar, but I remember at the time it was a huge deal when they added it because I know even like Christian Hill Church, I know, for example, they do a couple of like free clothing drives for the year. And when they added it, so many people were allowed to use that. And
Well, yeah.
And RIPTA needs to probably reinvent itself, maybe reach out to some of these businesses, Walmart, Home Depot. I know Market Basket brought their own run-in, like I told you guys earlier. It's, maybe RIPTA needs to reach out to some of these businesses and look for something also, possibly as saying, hey, we're bringing these people to you. Maybe you can help finance this or whatever, they probably have to reinvent themselves too.
Yes.
Because let's face it, it's a very, some people on the bus get the card from the state that they can go and use. So again, why can't they use that on a taxi if they can avoid, if they cut this run, if ultimately, but I think they do have to reinvent themselves as far as what they need. Maybe it's not, maybe it's not 10 buses through West Warwick a day. Maybe it's 5, but give the option for the cab, use that card on a cab if they need it.
Rep. Naray, he used the perfect word, is just restructuring everything.
Yeah.
And I'm not for eliminating.
No.
Word eliminating. I think it can be done. I think restructuring can be done if people want to put their minds to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that were in those meetings, the riders, were willing to look at reduced runs. If you just rework the schedule and tell me that I only have one opportunity to get there this day, at least I know that, and I'll do it.
Every business is doing it right now. They're restructuring, they're trying to figure out new ways of reinventing themselves. So RIPTA's gotta do the same thing. And how they do it, that's gonna be, like Mary Beth said, it's on a state and federal level, but, we need to try to protect who's here now, even if it's temporary and we can figure out something, but they just can't cut it right out right now. Any other discussion on that? Thank you.
Review, appointment to fill a vacancy as an alternate member for 3-year term. Sewer Use Board of Review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for a 3-year term. West Warwick Housing Authority, appointment to fill a vacancy for a 5-year term expiring November 2027. Tax Assessment Board of Review, appointment to fill a vacancy for a 3-year term. School Building Committee, architectural, engineering, construction experience. Tree warden must be licensed. Fortis Library Board of Trustees, 3 appointments of reappointment for a 3-year term. Recreation Committee, appointment to fill a vacancy for a 3-year term. Planning Board alternate, appointment to be filled vacancy. West Warwick 250th Commission, 5 vacancies.
And the planning board was already filled tonight,
Yes.
But we
As were
have
the
to-
library board of
and the
trustees.
library board of trustees. Public comment. Any public comment? Just come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Albert Anderson, 2678 South County Trail, East Greenwich, Rhode Island. Basically, I'm here to address an issue I'm having with a business that had moved in above my business. I'm at 3 Bridle Avenue in West Warwick, and I own and operate the Old Mill Flea Market. It's a vintage and antique collectible market. Above me, I'm on the 3rd floor, and on the 1st floor of the building, there was a gym. And apparently now the gym is moved to the 4th floor above my flea market. And as they were moving stuff up back in November of 23, I had called the landlord and asked him why, how can this be? And he says he just rented the space to him and the town would have to approve it. So I called the town and they told me that they had approved it. And the building inspector was outside and I had mentioned it to him and he says, it's been approved. And I said, well, what can I do about it? And basically he said, get a lawyer, which I couldn't figure that one out, but also, so now they've been running and operating since, December of '23. And the absolute noise and the dropping of the weights and the plates, and they have a boxing ring above, right above. Light fixtures are falling down, fluorescent lights are falling right out of the fixtures. I have photos, I've got debris over all of the product. So what I did was I couldn't wrap my head around how this could be approved, and I came here yesterday and spoke with the licensing department, and they said that it's never been approved. They don't have a license, and they are operating, and there's also, I have women and children that come into my facility. I'm only open Saturdays and Sundays, and they have this loud rap and vulgar music playing. I've gone up there several times, and basically I'm told to get out, and I don't know what else to do.
So we can look at the licensing aspect of it. When you say license aspect and the building official inspecting it, that's two different.
Yeah, the building,
Aspects
the inspector was there, the fire department was there
So-
as a new business, and they never even applied for a new business, so I don't even know how those
So we'll
departments
have to
could
look
have.
into that,
Were they
but
on the-
what
were they on the
majority of
first
your
floor?
concern, it sounds like it's a landlord-tenant dispute at this
I
point.
mean, there's multiple businesses up there. He subdivided the whole entire, facility above me into 4 different businesses.
And shame on me, because this was something I wanted to put on the agenda last time was, and only because this had come up, not just for this mill, but there was another mill that was brought up to my attention that there was a barber shop in there, there was this, there was that, and I said,
That's the same
so
business.
I was going to ask to put this on the agenda, and I'm not gonna be here next meeting, but I would ask to put it on the agenda for next meeting, that we, the town, Tony and the tax assessor's office, start inspecting these, mills to see what's in here for businesses, because I'm hearing now,
Yeah.
fire and building, we're all here, and I don't know if it was for that business or
It
another
was
business.
for that.
or whatever.
He was there for,
Right.
specifically for
But
that, and
they're
now
not-
there's a major event coming up on March 30th where they have major fighters coming in, like adults. This noise is just from teenagers and kids. I
Well,
can't
that
imagine.
aspect of it, that aspect from moving from first floor to fourth floor, that sounds like a tenant landlord dispute, honestly. So you're gonna have to fight that
Well,
with your
I
landlord,
mean-
but as far as licensing, we would, that's our
Well, if it
responsibility.
hasn't even been approved yet.
Registration, so yes, yeah,
That's
Paula.
two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a business registration, which that's what the clerk's office
There's
does.
nothing there.
So what happened was, the boxing ring he's talking about, that business owner has 2 other businesses in that mill.
Mhm.
He owns 3 businesses. There's a painting and wine thing. There is the boxing ring, and then there's the, food truck,
yeah, he owns
Something-
Food Vibes,
food
food truck.
vibes, whatever. He was on 1 floor, so all the licenses are not transferable. They would have to apply as new, even if they move to another floor. They have to redo everything. They have to go through inspection. So the inspections he's talking about is when he first applied was when he was, say, the 3rd floor. But now he moved to the 4th floor, which I wasn't aware that he moved. I was told by the fire marshal
So
that
what-
they moved.
So he was
I-
registered on the first floor.
He was, I'd say 3rd floor, he moved to the above floor.
But
I contacted him because the fire came to me to see if he reapplied. I said no. I called him personally, and he told me, I think I called him back in November,
For the owner.
called the owner of the business of the boxing ring. He told me that he was gonna come in. He never did. So the permits that he had on the 3rd floor are now, they're expired, they're no good because he moved. So he has to reapply and do everything all over again. So right now, he's operating with no licenses. And actually, the other 2 businesses he has, they're expired as well. I did contact him. He's not coming in. And I don't know, like I told you, I don't know. It's out of my hand. I don't know what to do.
Is there an owner of a business or, so you own the business on?
I own the business on the 3rd floor.
He's a
there's a
commercial
mill
tenant.
owner, there's a
Okay,
mill
all
owner.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, he rents a space.
You rent the space
Yes.
from the owner who owns the building.
correct.
Okay.
The mill.
The mill.
The 3 bridal mill.
Right.
And the business that he's speaking about has 3 businesses in there.
But does that entity own the mill or are they just commercial?
No,
tenants?
he's
They
just a
rent the
tenant
space.
also, yes.
They rent all 3 units.
That's why I'm saying that you've got a couple of issues, but the town can handle.
I mean, I
with it.
did call an attorney and they told me that a nuisance has been brought upon me.
Well, I'm
But
not
I
gonna
don't
get
want to
that,
get
but
into any of that.
The town can address your concerns as it relates to what the
Yeah.
clerk just put on the record as it relates to permits and licenses no longer being active and any changes from floor to floor, so.
So what responsibility do we have if a business is saying, or anybody is saying, like, I'm not really concerned
It's
about
pretty much
the
a
music.
danger.
It's more the
Yes.
danger
Yes.
of, light fixtures falling
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something falling on someone.
First off, if he has no permit or license to have
Can't
that
be
type of
there.
activity
Right.
on the fourth floor, the town can address it through its inspection. However, if he's trying to work it in and around where he's not doing anything and he's not cooperating with the clerk's office or any other departments of the town, the department, if there's evidence to support what this person's saying, can certainly issue a cease and desist or
On that floor, not on the entire.
Right, but
mill.
again, I don't
Correct.
know what the inspection is. I don't know if there's 5 floors there or 6 floors there, but the town certainly has a right because if he moved from floor 1 to floor 4 with weights, et cetera, I don't even know if that 4th floor can support a gym, it can support a weight room. I don't know.
So it's basically like moving from house to house to house.
Well, it's a little different because if you got a commercial tenancy and the commercial landlord allows for the move without doing what they're supposed to do, then there's an issue the town can address. But again, there's a lot of facts that have been, I guess, enunciated there tonight without any evidence to support which way the town's gonna go, because if the town hasn't gone in to inspect, he might be absolutely right. That ceiling or that floor may not be enough to support.
I have videos of,
You know,
I mean, it's shaking.
know how many
the whole-
tons
It's
that
unbearable.
weighs. Business card or anything you can give the town manager?
I have one in my.
And
pocket.
forgive me if you already said this, but have you contacted the owner of the mill?
I did, and he says all he does is rent the space and it's up to the town to decide if they approve.
You
That's
might
not
not
correct.
like that
That-
decision.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah,
true because
yeah.
if you do have a lease with the commercial landlord and he's in breach of that lease, then that's between 2 private entities. not
Right.
the town.
And, I mean, if I do something about it, where do I go?
I can't
That
give you
would
the
be
answer.
that's
Right,
the
right.
issue I'm having, because there's no way I can move.
It's,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but we have to look into everything you said
here Yeah.
tonight. If we
But I mean, I know someone's gonna, someone's gonna end up getting hurt. and-
need to verify why we were inspecting the fourth
Yeah, how
when
did
they're
they
supposed to
go?
be on
Why
the
did they,
first floor.
why would they even go to inspect?
Was it a yearly inspection?
Bob thought maybe, I was there, I inspected it, but he probably thinks it was the first license he applied for when he was on the 3rd floor. You know what I mean? So when he moved,
But you have to call to get them to come.
right,
But Bob, why would we send somebody out if there's no license? Yeah,
I think
yeah,
How
Yeah.
can you have,
Yeah.
can you have some type of an event where there's gonna be bouts?
yeah,
or
that,
matches Where you don't know if the building or fire code, has been.
Yeah, he hasn't come for us for any,
Is that- when is that?
It's on, he has the Fight Factory Rhode Island on Instagram. So
okay.
all of his events are on there right now,
And when,
at that location.
and
yes.
when's the next event?
That is the 30th of March.
It's a Saturday.
Yeah.
So is that,
Operating right now.
are they is the event gonna go on at the same time as that you're open?
I'm not sure. I mean, it
It's
usually,
irrelevant,
it
yeah.
usually
You
is.
may not be able to go forward because if you can't pass, if you're gonna have spectators at a bout, I mean, ingress.
And it's
egress,
small up there,
also-
too.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is it's tight. I've been in there, I've been into
Yeah.
it, it's very tight in there on every day every Saturday and Sunday. If you add,
We can, the town manager and I will discuss it tomorrow, further with the department to see what the town can and cannot do about the permits.
I believe my space is about 8,000 square feet, and it's exactly the same.
As far as a breach of
Yeah.
your tenancy or your contract, with the landlord, that's a private matter that you're gonna have to take up.
How long's it been there? You said the new one?
He's been there since, 12/11 is where his grand opening was.
I'm just,
on-
I'm on the Instagram, so I'm just
Yeah,
trying to see
yeah.
which ones are old, which ones are new.
Yeah,
That's-
12/11/23 was his grand opening. He's got it right on there.
Okay.
And if you said if you have a business card,
Yes.
if you have it out in the truck and you want to bring it back in,
Yes,
I'll take it.
okay,
For some reason, if we go into executive session before you get here, just leave it right on that table and I'll grab
Okay.
it when we're
all
done.
right.
Thank you.
It's in the same, on his floor.
Fire was the one that when they inspection came out, they'll call me or email me and ask me if I have to.
Put the entire,
It's gonna be our
put
next.
the entire
That's why I'm saying,
address
put it on
on,
the,
on the agenda.
well, and that's why I'm saying we need to put on the next agenda that
So next week,
we.
yeah,
we
make sure that, make
tell-
sure,
or
yeah.
if it doesn't have to go on the agenda, but we gotta make sure Tony and Sal are inspecting these mills, because people are popping, in. It's not just that mill, it's numerous mills down in Crompton, there's mills down, actually behind the old Crompton, playground, that people are moving in, we don't know who's there, who's not.
Believe me, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's business.
No,
If
but-
they could
but we need to
sound
know
proof
who's
it,
there,
if
too.
They
Right.
could,
But
There's a protocol that people
Yeah.
have to follow, and it's for
but I mean,
safety.
it's scary. It really is.
Structural engineering.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Never Creek, 62 Andrews Ave. First thing is I sat here tonight and listened about the River Point Park roadways. Now, this town just spent a lot of money on new fields and everything, and we got new families coming to this area and using that park and everything. I think it's a good idea that we look at, and we looked at it last year as well when I was part of the rec board. I think it's a good idea that we look at the paving project for the spring. I mean, that's not more than a couple days project over there during the day. To wait till the fall, that road, I mean, it's just not, it's not appeasing for the investment that was made on those fields for all the new families coming in. I think we can all agree on that. So to do in the spring, probably a better opportunity and a better situation for the revenue that we use and bring in over there. I mean, it's just that you get behind that field in the middle and it's like a roller coaster. So to leave it till fall, especially with all this rain that we had and settling, I'm pretty sure that that hole in the back is at least 8 to 10 inches deeper than it was in the fall of last year. That's number one. That's just my opinion. I was a part of those fields coming together, and I just think that should be put on the top of the list instead of the bottom of the list. The other thing is the rec board. I know Jay got shot down tonight to discuss it, but public comment, I can say what I need to say. There's no members that are gonna stay on this board unless it has some kind of formality from this council, the Parks and Recreation Department, the DPW, or the town planner. Now, I resigned for those reasons of there was nothing for us to functionally do. Now you lost Paul Richards, which has been part of this from the beginning of River Point being redone. That's a big hit to this town, okay? Me and Paul worked really well. Chris Messier, now he's next. He's been there for a long time. He was my vice chair.
I think he's been on there 3 times, removed 3 times, or removed himself 3
Well,
times.
regardless,
On and off.
he's doing it again, okay? It's a chain reaction going on. The people don't want to be a part of it. Now, I'm gonna go with saying something, and I don't get the vote anymore to get put on these boards. And I was called a quitter and all this other stuff, okay? Now we got 3 that quit. I don't think they all quit, including myself. I never quit. I stepped down and resigned from something that has no function. Now we have 3. One was there for a long time. And I'm gonna tell you right now, the board that we put together, when I was there, Paul was there, Chris was there when he could get there, Vin Marzullo, and we seeked out Nate Hunter. We all know Nate Hunter knows a lot about Paul, okay? You had a perfect board for the situation of this town. Now it's falling apart. And you can appoint people and whatever, but you don't have a quorum. And the person that you appointed tonight's not here tonight. he needs to understand what he just got himself into. He just put his name in the hat or in the ring with no purpose. So, like Chris said, if we can figure out how to put this thing back together and make sense and be a useful board, that's one thing. If we can't, then let's abolish it. But if we can figure out how to put it together, I'll put my name back in the hat. And I'll get back on, and I'll seek out Paul, and I'll seek out Chris if we want to use them again, and we'll keep it together. And the assets that you have on the board that just resigned is what this town needs. And that's all I'm gonna say. I mean, I was called whatever, that's fine. Names don't hurt me. It's just, now you got a chain reaction of members that have deep roots into this town, deep roots into recreation, that are walking away. And I would like to hear it on an agenda, hear the council speak upon it. And I want to hear what the council's expectations are. That's great. But how do we get the gears in motion? And how do we get the wheels in motion? Because the wheels just spin. When I sit at a board meeting and I'm sitting in that chair and I'm told, I don't know why we're here tonight, and this board doesn't make the decision, I make the decision, and I can make the decisions without the board, okay? That's why I left. Okay, I'm not gonna sit there and waste my time when I'm told that. That was my last.
You weren't told by anybody.
I'm being clear, as nobody's sitting here. However, when you tell me that, I don't need to be here. I don't, okay? And I'm not gonna put on public record who said, but if you wanna know, I'll tell you, but not on public record. And there's nobody in this room. Okay? But I'm aggravated because I put my heart and soul into a portion of this with Jeff on these fields. And it hurt me, and he'll tell you. I spoke to him many times before I walked away. And there's other people within this town that begged me and asked me not to do it. But when the wheels are not in motion, there's no purpose. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, that's just, I can't keep saying it. If we can put it together again, I will do what people in this town, in this building had asked me not to do, is resign. I'll put my name back in the hat. Maybe I get the vote, maybe I don't. But if we can make it functional, I'll do it. Because there's a lot of children in this town that need resources and places to go and things to do. And the town has a lot of potential in that department. And we had the right people sitting there. But we need an agenda, and we need to feel like we need to be part of something, of making a change. And I'm speaking like this because I spoke with Paul since his resignation. I spoke to Chris since his resignation. And there's a couple others that are left that are saying, there's nothing for me here. So I'm gonna tell you that there might be some more coming. And then you have lost the best board. And I'm not saying it for myself, okay? I know how to get the job done outside of this room. That's probably my best asset with that board. But the rest of them have the functionality that they understand baseball, they understand softball, they understand tennis, they understand recreation in itself. They're important assets. But we gotta figure out how to get this board to work. And I don't have to say nothing else. The other thing is Arctic, okay? Gazebo's been quiet. Beautiful. However, is there a law of some sort of public intoxication? I know when I was growing up and when I was 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, if you were drunk or on something and stumbling into the streets, you were in trouble. Last night, I almost ran over a zombie, literally, in front of Hez. There is a group that hangs around in front of Hez, and that corner where Thunder Mist used to be, that are stoned out of their minds all day, all night. Now, you got a bank across the street. Do we need to put another armed guard in front of a bank? Arctic is starting to look like something since we figured out how to do with the gazebo. Tell Hez, and I'll tell Hez on this record, to take your zombies somewhere else, because that's where they're hanging out. Got guy out there walking last night with his hands in the air like you see on Facebook in Philly, in Chicago. All these major cities, you got these people strung out, drunk, whatever they are, with their arms flaying, their head going and stumbling everywhere. This guy almost got ran over by a Chevy Silverado last night. This is the town that I live in. I'm gonna say it again. I'm not gonna stand for it.
So Derek, I just sent you a text with 2013 Rhode Island General Law, Title 23, Health and Safety, Chapter 21, 10, Alcoholism. You can read that, and that'll explain the law.
Okay.
All right, I think we've talked about it here numerous times. I think Pete Cottrell has brought it up to us numerous times, and I've shared that law with everybody here numerous times. So if you want to read it.
I'm gonna read it, but all I'm telling you is,
No, you might want to go to the State House and have that discussion.
I'll be glad to do that. So, that's all I got.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none?
Motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you, have a good night.
Yeah, it's the same. Mark sent it to us before.
Mark's
Chief, thank you for that,
situation. of Hastings,
oh, thank you.
Evening situation.